My very first thoughts when I heard about the tragedy of Karbala was just confusion.
I didn't know much about what was going on or why all these ladies were crying and feeling extremely sad.
And I went to the shrine of Sayyidah Zainab salam alayha and saw a lot of people in black and a lot of people crying, but I had no idea why they were crying.
How can this be? How?
You're looking at 72 versus 30,000.
I accepted that Islam is my faith and that the family of the Prophet and the Prophet himself are my family.
A lot of people forget that the reason we mourn for Imam Hussein and the companions and the family that were massacred there is actually because it's a protest.
Abbas was one of the people who actually did what we would all want to do.
I came back to England and I was saying to people, you must go, you've got to go to Iraq. And they said, no, Imam Hussein is in my heart, you know. So no, it's not the same, you've got to go there.
It's become like a craving for me. So when Muharram ends, I want it to come back.
It's an opportunity for you to better yourself by remembering this personality.
Mahatma Gandhi, he said himself that it taught him how to attain victory without being oppressed.
The message is eternal. It's about oppression and it's about injustice and it's about standing up to evil.
They are elevated people. And these are people of Muhammad.
كربلاء أنت طوافي جئت من عمق المنافي.
The first time I came across the story of Muharram was when I really started to research more into Islam. I'd already reverted by this time, but there was still a lot of confusion as to what my beliefs were, because obviously when you become a Muslim, first thing you learn about is Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the Quran and a few of the early stories about how Islam came to be. But when you pass that stage, you really start to wonder what path to go down. Obviously after the Prophet, peace be upon him, passed away, there was the kind of division between the Ummah as to who was the successor after him. And that's when I started to really sort of speak to friends, people from my local mosque, about what exactly their beliefs were, why they believed this, and so on. A few of my friends were Shiites, and they obviously had the stories regarding the Ahlul Bayt, Imam Ali, peace be upon him, and so on. But a lot of my friends were actually from the Sunni sect. And originally, there was a time where I was learning a lot more about the companions and so on, and potentially would have gone down the path of Ahlul Sunnah. But when I heard about the story of Muharram and how Imam Hussein alayhi salam was put through this terrible test, and how he proved himself to be not only just a really, really great leader, but also to be so brave to stand up against such evil and to really, really stand up for a good cause. And when you hear about the story, there was only one answer I could give after hearing about how he stayed so loyal, how he was able to deal with all of the suffering and pain that he was put through, and not just him but his family as well. So clearly when you see the story of Muharram, how it all took place and what happened, and how Hussein and his family dealt with all of this terrible situation that they were put through, you can clearly see who the real Muslims are and who the people I want to be following are. Hearing the story, obviously at first was really, really surprising for me, because, you know, being born outside of Islam, I really didn't know much about Islam, especially the Prophet's family. So Hussein and Muharram and all of these stories I had absolutely no knowledge of before becoming a Muslim. So now that I was hearing all of this information and how badly the Prophet's family had suffered, especially during Muharram, it really helped me to kind of understand a lot more about Islam, a lot more about Shia Muslims in particular. And even to this day, you know, I've learned so much from this one story, and obviously there's so many stories, not just from Hussein, but the whole of the Ahlul Bayt and the Prophet, peace be upon them all. But this one story in particular really hit home and really touched my heart because of how much suffering that they were put through, but still they stuck to Islam, they stuck to the messages and the principles of Islam. And truly, you can really see that these are the true infallible family members of the Prophet that just stuck with Islam no matter what. And when you see how someone is really tested, so obviously you can get a lot of people talking about how they would react in certain situations and how they would stay by their principles and so on. But when you actually see Hussein and his family were actually in the situation where it was life or death, where they were being really brutally oppressed, and how he handled it and how he stuck to Islam so loyally, I really personally felt as if there was no one else but the Hussein and the Ahlul Bayt were just the ones for me. When I first came across the story, at first was really just confusion. Obviously I'd never heard the story before. It was surprisingly incredibly detailed. It was very graphic, and the amount of suffering that they were put through, not just on the final day of Ashura, but the 10 days leading up to Ashura as well, was quite unbelievable to read. Obviously because I knew that this was the Prophet's grandson as well. I was really shocked, and at the time I wasn't sure whether it was a little bit exaggerated, where maybe some of the stories were not necessarily how it actually went down. But the more and more research that I did, and just because originally I heard from the stories from brothers speaking to me, and it was kind of word of mouth where I first came across the story, and some of the stuff I wasn't sure if it was real or not, how much of it was true and misconceptions and so on. But when I actually came down to it and I was reading and I did some personal research and looking into it myself, and when you see how much of it's actually true, how they suffered and how brutally they were sort of picked on by these really oppressive rulers at the time, you know, it was really shocking, really shocking. Obviously I have a lot of love for the Prophet, peace be upon him, a lot of love for Islam, and naturally that love was really growing for his family as well. And even if it were to happen to a companion of the Prophet or a distant friend of the Prophet, I would be really upset. But for it to happen to his grandson in particular, it was just unbelievable to read. I really couldn't understand how anyone would have been able to do that to someone who was so close to the Prophet. You know, Hussein was around when the Prophet was alive. You know, the Prophet used to treat him like he was his own son. He was always with him. The number of hadiths and how many times the Prophet spoke highly of Hussein and Hassan, his whole family. He spoke of them so highly. So for anyone who, and a lot of the people who oppressed the Imam and his family was also around when the Prophet was around. So for these people to live with the Prophet and have so much knowledge of him and love for him, and then a few years down the line to oppress his family so badly was unbelievable. It's always been very emotional for me to talk about, and when I really started to understand the religion of Islam, obviously my love was growing and growing at that point, but then to reach this kind of, it was like hitting a wall, this story. Everything's good up to this point, everyone loves to talk about the Prophet, all the achievements he made, Islam was growing, but then all of a sudden you just hit this wall where, you know, Islam just kind of like stopped. You know, there was this kind of like deterioration of Islam almost, how there was these oppressors who were ruling different parts of the Middle East and the Ummah at that period, and how Hussein had to be put through such a test. And this is, again, the grandson of the Prophet we're talking about. It's not a friend or a politician. This is the grandson of the Prophet. This is his blood walking on earth at that time. When I first came to Islam, I had a lot of Sunni friends, and I had one or two Shiite friends as well. When I decided that I wanted to become a Muslim, they all kind of jumped on me. They wanted to teach me and bring me to their mosques and they wanted to be like my teachers and stuff and tell me everything they wanted to know. And it was a really great time. I was learning a lot, and obviously, like I said, I was learning a lot about the early years of Islam, Prophet, the Quran, and a few teachings, how to pray, for example. But after a period of time, when I started to hear the kind of divisions in belief, so how to pray correctly and so on and so forth, and obviously after the Prophet passed away, I started to hear the kind of two sides. There was the stories of the Ahlul Bayt, Imam Ali and so on, and then there was the stories like from the companions and stuff. And when I was kind of really discovering myself as a Muslim, how I wanted to pray, how I wanted to, what teachings and beliefs I wanted to follow in particular, it was the stories of the Ahlul Bayt which were really, really shining to me. Imam Ali in particular was a very, very inspirational character to me. How close he was to the Prophet and so on, and all the things that he said and did in his life, not just when the Prophet was around, but also after the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him. How Imam Ali was living, how he was acting, the decisions he was making, and his teachings were just really, really drawing me to him in particular. And obviously from there I wanted to learn more about after him and his children, Hassan and Hussein, Fatima as well, peace be upon them all. And obviously when you start speaking to Shia Muslims about the Ahlul Bayt, it's not long before you come across the story of Muharram. And when I started to hear the stories of how Hussein lived, not just during Muharram but also before, and all of the teachings that he had and his lifestyle in general, I was really not only drawn to him, but I was drawn to the whole of the Ahlul Bayt. The way that they live and the principles which they stand by was just a lot more appealing to me, because this was the way I wanted to live. You know, to be so loyal and to stick by the religion and to make it play such an important role in your day-to-day life, at work, at home, with your family. Everything just revolved around Islam with these characters, and this was how I wanted to live. And when I heard about the story of Muharram, how he stuck by the religion of Islam, how they were praying on the battlefield and all these kind of little things, it really made me feel as if this is how I would want to act in the same situation. So it's only natural for me to want to follow the personality who was living in that situation and who actually has the experience and who we can clearly see acted in the correct way during that period. When people ask me why we still commemorate and remember 1400 years on Muharram and the events that happened in Karbala, I would reply by saying that even to this day there are a lot of people around the world who are being oppressed, and everyone at some stage in their life feels as if they are being oppressed to one degree or another, whether it's politics or at the workplace or day to day. Everyone would understand and can relate to oppression to some degree or another. In particular, I believe in the Muslim world, that's one thing which every Muslim can relate to very, very much. Even to this day, in this modern age that we live in, everyone can relate to oppression and oppressors. And I would simply say that there's so much oppression in the world today that so many people feel so passionately about. You know, like the Palestinians, for example, everyone has a big opinion on that. So it's only natural for me as a Shia Muslim to have who has so much love for the Ahlul Bayt, to still feel that same love and that same emotional connection to Hussein and to all of the Ahlul Bayt who were there during Muharram and who suffered and were oppressed so badly. And the fact is, Hussein died during Muharram for the main reason that he was sending a message to the Muslims to not give in to oppressors, to not give up when things get tough, you know. And when people really turn against you and your beliefs, when you know that you're right, when people really start to spread lies, or if they're kind of really trying to get you to stop what you're doing, and you know it's the right thing to do, it's important for you to never give in to the people who are really trying to stop you from achieving what's good in this world. And Hussein not only did that himself, but he wanted the whole world to remember this and to keep this principle, especially the Muslims, because the Muslims are the ones who are setting that standard for the rest of the world. When I started to really learn more about the Ahlul Bayt and their teachings, and Hussein in particular, I started to get a lot more curious, and I wanted to start practicing more and starting to get a lot more involved in the kind of Shia Islam, and Muharram in particular was something which obviously every Shia Muslim practices every year. You know, it's something which they look forward to doing, to remembering and to commemorating and to getting that emotional connection. It's a really good period to really get deep into the religion and to kind of remember the personality which we think about every day. So it was only natural for me to want to kind of get involved and to experience it for myself. It was only, say, about a year ago when I actually first attended my first Muharram lectures, and although I'd done a lot of research on the event myself, to actually hear the stories being told to me and what actually happened, there was a lot more information being given to me. And not only that, but it was being told to me. So obviously there was a lot more emotion I was getting from the words. I was seeing around a lot of brothers and sisters who just knew so much and they had such an emotional connection. There was a lot more I could get out of these lectures than I could get out of just reading books and looking on the internet. And this was the first time that I really started to get the emotional connection, the spiritual connection to Imam Hussein. And this is when I really started to understand why there was so much emotion behind it, why the people felt like they did. Because when you get to see it with your own eyes, you really start to understand that these people really do have love for Hussein and the Prophet's family. And when you see it for your own eyes, you really start to understand that these are the real Muslims, the real Islam, you know? You start to see how the people feel, even to this day, how they feel about what happened 1400 years ago. And that in itself really touched me and my heart, you know? It really touched me personally to see how these people still feel even today. And it really helped me on my path towards Shia Islam, and it really helped me on my path towards getting closer to the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt and Islam in general. The best thing to me about this period, Muharram, that I practiced was definitely the community coming together. The lectures are very, very interesting and inspiring, and obviously a lot which I learn about during these lectures touches me personally. But what really I like to experience during that period was the community atmosphere. Everyone comes together during that period, everyone feels the same, and everyone wants the same kind of experience to come together, to really kind of connect spiritually. And it's one of the best periods to kind of come down to meet new people. And for me, being not born a Muslim, for me to experience such a friendly, welcoming atmosphere during a period where it's so important to a lot of Muslims to come down and to really get this kind of spiritual high and to kind of remember Hussein, who's one of the greatest personalities in the religion. And for me to be so welcomed in and to kind of have the experience shared with me, and for everyone to be kind of welcoming me in and wanting me to learn more, really kind of hit me personally. It really kind of affected me and made me feel that I was not only welcomed, but also that they wanted me to be a part of what they were feeling. They wanted me to be a part of the emotional connection. They wanted me to be a part of the religion, and they wanted me to learn more. And that really touched me personally. Abbas ibn Ali, for me, was one of the characters which I felt the closest connection to, other than Hussein, during that period. The reason being was probably because although they were all suffering, all of them, the whole Hussein and all of his companions, and a lot of his companions there were also his family, and they were not all men, there was women and children there as well. They were all suffering together, and Abbas ibn Ali, may God be pleased with him, was one of the only members of the Beni Hashim who was able to actually reach water during that period. And although he had the opportunity, he could have quickly relieved himself of some of the suffering. He could have drunk some water, he could have spent a bit of time there, maybe washed himself down a little bit, at least relieved himself just that tiny bit before trying to come back. He didn't even think twice, you know, he just filled it up. The first thing that was on his mind was Hussein and his family, to bring the water back for them. And for me, I personally felt as if that was such an amazing way of thinking. Abbas was always the kind of character who I personally felt connected to, because again, I felt as if that was something that I would have wanted to do in that situation. You know, all Shia Muslims would want to say to themselves, if they were in that situation, I would want to be the one that runs out and tries to grab water for Hussein. I would be the one who wanted to fight for Hussein and to defend him and his family. And Abbas was one of the people who actually did what we would all want to do. You know, he tried to get water, he tried to bring it back, he wouldn't even drink the water himself. And all of this was just so amazing for me and made me feel as if, again, these were just the best personalities. And it's just such a shame how they were treated. Even now, it's emotional for me to talk about, you know, how Abbas had so much love for his family and for Hussein, as we all do. But for him to have the opportunity to at least relieve himself, and he refused. You know, we've all fasted, we all know how it feels to be thirsty, but to be so thirsty in that heat as well, even me, I don't know how that feels. And to have that opportunity and then to just refuse without even giving it a second thought, just trying to bring the water back. And how he suffered, you know, because I have family, we all have family. If we was in that situation, you know, we would want to do the best for them, you know. And for him to be trying so hard just to give them water is just so sad, you know, how he was really oppressed and how hard he worked and how he died just trying to give them something, you know. It's very emotional, and that really touched me. Everyone kind of feels as if they're oppressed at some point in their lives, and for us, some people, they're not always sure how to handle it or what to do, and sometimes people feel as if they're alone or isolated or there's nothing they can do. But when you sort of read or learn about this experience, this the Muharram in particular, this story, you really know that even though there may be a lot of people, powerful people, oppressing or like pushing you down, you should never ever let those people get over you doing the right thing, you know. If you want to do good in life and you know what you're doing is right, you should never ever let anyone tell you different. And Hussein stood up for justice. He stood up against people who lie, people who want to change a whole belief system, and the belief system is perfect anyway, so for people to change it for bad reasons, you know, just for their own selfish needs and wants. And the lessons which you learn on how to deal with these kind of problems which you face in life, you know, me in particular, in the workplace, there are times where I might feel as if someone is not treating me in a good way, or that the system which they have is not working, or I may feel as if there's people out, you know, if you're trying to do good in work or in life or with your family, you know, sometimes people don't want you to achieve the right thing, to achieve what's good for you or your family, you know, because they have their own selfish things going on. but you always know that if Hussein can stand up, even in the face of death, against the most worst oppressors, you know yourself that there's no one that you shouldn't be able to stand up to as well. And that even stands in today's society. Oppression in Islam is not tolerated to any degree. Even if it's small or big, it should never be tolerated. In life, when you're being oppressed and you see oppression around you, you should always stand up and fight for it, even if it's not oppression against you. If you're seeing oppression, you should always stand up and defend. And as Muslims, we have the responsibility to not only defend ourselves, but also our brothers and sisters around us. And I think in today's society, with so much oppression going on, we really need to read and to understand the story of Hussein more and really start to implement it in our day-to-day lives, because there is so much oppression going on, and sometimes it's not necessarily happening to us. But if we were to all stand up, come together, and to actually speak out as an ummah, as a group, as a unit, then I personally believe that all the oppression which we see and we complain about on a day-to-day basis, big and small, would definitely be defeated, just as Imam Hussein alayhi salam defeated it. Getting the opportunity to visit Imam Hussein and to personally offer my prayers to him would be by far one of the best experiences of my life. It's something which I'm definitely going to do at some point, inshallah, in my lifetime. It's definitely up there with, you know, performing Hajj, because I've learnt so much from Muharram, from Hussein, just by being in this country. And so for me, if I was to get the opportunity to actually go there, I know for a fact that I'd get so much out of it spiritually and religiously that the benefits would be so high. I personally would love the opportunity to go there and to touch and to feel for myself, and to just be in that kind of environment, to be in Karbala, to a place where it actually happened, and to kind of feel the air, the sand, everything, just kind of really get the opportunity to really get into it and to feel, just feeling and touching. It's that kind of difficult thing to explain, but if you have such an emotional connection to Hussein, and you have so much love for him and so much emotion to share and to give, you just really want to get there and kind of feel how it would have felt. You know, you'll be able to feel the heat of that area. You'll be able to kind of see the surroundings, to see the terrain, to see everything. And to get the opportunity to actually go to the shrine in particular would personally give me so much relief. There's a lot which you can not only learn from Muharram just by kind of like being a human being. You can learn so much about standing up against oppressors, liars, and standing up against evil and not giving up your beliefs. But there's also so much which you can benefit from it on a personal level. You know, it gives you the opportunity to really reflect on your life. It gives you the opportunity to better yourself as a human being, and to kind of really think about who you are and what you're doing in this life and how you're treating other people. So I would say that the best way that I could explain it to them would be that it's not only remembering Hussein, who is this great personality that we all, you know, want to commemorate because of so much achievements that he made and so much he sacrificed, but I'd also explain to them that it's an opportunity for you to better yourself by remembering this personality, by studying what he did and why he did the things that he done and why he stood up for his beliefs even in the face of death. You know, there's so many people who are just completely ignorant of the whole kind of experience. They just don't know what Muharram is, why we're doing it, what it's about, who it's about. And when you explain it to them, especially me, when I explain it to non-Muslims, my family and friends and so on, when you explain to them who Hussein was, why he did what he did, and when you explain what happened in Karbala, I've never ever had a person who responded negatively to that, or a person who couldn't relate to that. You know, I've had so many friends who have just, you know, even they, although they're not Muslim, they feel emotional because of the story. The story is really sad and it really gets them. because when you explain all the things that happened and why they happened and how Hussein reacted to this kind of horrible situation, you know, he could have reacted so badly, but he didn't. It really, really kind of affects them, and they're not Muslim. So for me, explaining it to them, once they understand the whole story behind it, it's very, very easy for them to kind of understand why we're mourning for such a great personality.
كربلا أنت طوافي جئت من عمق المنافي وعلى